Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Information, Individuation according to Simondon, with our instructor, Cécile Malaspina. What is it that distinguishes information from a random event? It is, according to Simondon, its catalyzing effect on the process of individuation. Information thus conceived is synonymous with the sense of individuation, affine with the potentialities specific to it, and conducive to amplify its intrinsic orientation. The first part of the survey seminar will consist of situating the key elements of Simondon's conception of information regarding what is, on the face of it, an anachronistic revival with the scholastic problem of individuation. This will allow us to carefully distinguish the concept of individuation from that of mere ontogenesis, with which it overlaps without being synonymous. Only once we situate Simondon's concept of information in the paradigmatic reorientation of speculative realism can we begin to truly grasp the insufficiency that he diagnoses in the concept of information according to cybernetics and information theory. The second part of the seminar will deal with the often deplored reduction of information to quantitative parameters at the expense of signification. Simondon's critique of a reductive concept of information indeed deserves elucidation, but also relativization, not only because of the certain blurriness in his account of negentropy and information entropy, but also because the issue of signification does not account exhaustively for Simondon's more substantive divergence on metaphysical grounds. The third part of the seminar will discuss Simondon's divergence from cybernetics and information theory, with particular attention to his emphasis on the role of disadaptation in developmental psychology. This will enable contemporary readers of Simondon's to resist what Isabel Stingers has so adroitly singled out as a danger of pietism, and to amplify instead the extent to which his concept of information can still be understood as an immanent vector of complexity and experimentation that Stingers rightly demands. Cécile Malaspina is the author of Epistemology of Noise, published by Bloomsbury in 2018, and principal translator of Gilbert Simondon's On the Mode of Existence of Technical Objects, out by University of Minnesota Press in 2007. She is directive de programme at Collège International de Philosophie in Paris and visiting research fellow at King's College London and University of West England, where her program for the Collège International de Philosophie is hosted by the Department of French and Philosophy, respectively. She is contributing editor to Angelique, Journal of Theoretical Humanities, commissioning editor for the independent publisher Copy Press, and guest editor at Nature's Humanity and Social Sciences Communication. Cécile Malaspina obtained her doctorate in epistemology, philosophy, and history of science and technology from Paris 7 Denis Diderot, and her master in contemporary French philosophy and critical theory on the Center for Research in Modern European Philosophy in the UK. Before turning to philosophy, she trained as an artist, art historian in Goldsmith and corrector, RCA. Her main interests lie in the normativity of concepts, especially with regard to the aesthetic and ethical implications of conceptualization, contingency, and uncertainty. Cécile, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Victor, and very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you, everybody else too. I can see that we're 24 people, but I see only a few of you on the actual screen. This is a good time to put your camera on if you like, because we'll do a little bit of introductions first. I have some feedback from previous seminars I did recently. I got a very nice email from one of the students who had never done anything related to philosophy before. She made me realize that actually this is something we need to discuss a little bit before we start, because some of you are have already published and work with philosophy. Others come from, I think the majority of you probably come from different fields. A lot of creative practices, design, architecture, artists. So we're not going to take for granted that we jump head on with the most difficult concepts. And yet I also know that the students at the new center are very exigent and very knowledgeable and sharp. So I'm not going to bore you either with generic content, but I think the introductions will be very helpful to get to know each other a little bit and be on the same page. One thing I'd like you to do for me is if you feel that the pace is too slow or too fast, you can send me an email, quick feedback, saying maybe where you got stuck or where you think that the pace could pick up. In fact, we can go as fast as you like, but I think this is something that we need to take on a case-by-case basis, and that will be more a matter of how you write your essays and what kind of texts you want to engage with and what level of depth. So we can take it fast and deep, but at the same time, in the group discussion, I think we should go through things relatively slowly and meticulously. The advantage of this approach, I think, is also the fact that by going fast in the wrong way, very often secondary literature, and in a way the interpretation of Simondon here, can gloss over aspects of concepts that ultimately I think can lead to misreadings or lead to missing the point to a certain extent, or sometimes lead to letting Simondon off the hook when a close reading means reading him a little bit against the grain, which is something that I like to do. And I'm going to signal when I knowingly diverge a little bit from Simondon. And obviously, if you think that I'm doing this when I think I'm interpreting him straight up, then you can also say that to me. So I think I've been introduced, but it'd be very nice if each of you could say a couple of words about what I would like to know from you. Obviously, it's your names, even though for most of them, they're also written on your profiles. But I'd like to know both why you were interested in Simondon and the concepts of information and individuation, perhaps knowing a little bit how much Simondon you've engaged with, either through other authors or directly with the text, and in what kind of practice you want to integrate this conceptual engagement practice or theory or whatever. So I think we all have a slightly different order of people appearing on the screen. On my top left, I have Yannick. So if you would like, you can start.
Hi, my name's Yannick. I'm calling from Seattle in the US. I just finished my undergraduate last year. I'm waiting to hear back from some grad programs, but I'm really interested in psychoanalytic thought, and so I'm kind of interested in Simondon's account of psychic individuation, and maybe like a sort of ontogenetic account of the symptom or of just formations of the unconscious. And I've done, a little bit of background reading over the last week, but other than that, I have no experience with his thought. So I'm excited to be here.
Me too, very much. Nice to meet you. What was your undergraduate in?
I studied Arabic, so sort
Okay.
of regional studies. Uh,
But in terms of the language or geopolitics or literature or arts, or what was your kind of?
Mostly language and literature. It was sort of a very broad program in the liberal arts. So I'm kind of finding my 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 path.
Okay, I'm asking because one of the concepts I'm very interested in is that of the common intellect that a lot of the Arabic or Arabophone interpreters of Aristotle proposed, and I don't know. In the future, I want to think about Simondon and this idea of the common intellect a little bit more. But okay, so thanks for introducing yourself. I've got a window saying the New Center for Research and Practice, and I don't know who's hiding behind that. So I don't know if that's Victor or, yeah, Victor. Do you want to introduce yourself as well briefly?
Ah, okay, so hi everyone, I'm Vitor, I'm from Brazil. I had undergrad in psychology and practice clinical psychology, especially in Lacanian psychoanalysis. But I'm also a writer. I too don't have a lot of experience with Simondon. I believe I crossed my path with him on undergrad studies. I don't remember how exactly, but didn't get much of in-depth thought. So I also very interested in the seminar and to know his thoughts, to know the concept of information and especially as Yannick in the concept of individuation in psychic perspective, and also because my interest in literature, especially on how literature conforms modes of mind, so to speak. So how can we use literature to challenge how our idea of mind works? So, and very interesting seminar. And to everyone, I'll be your moderator, so you can email me anytime you need some information on the seminar, or you need to can we be late or anything else. So hello everyone. Thank you, Cécile.
Hello, and yeah, thanks for introducing yourself. This is very helpful because I think we're going to probably introduce a focus in one of the later sessions on the psychosocial aspect of individuation and the role of information in that. So I think that's very helpful. I've got Peggy Bloomer. You look familiar to me, maybe from the Collège International de Philosophie seminars. Is that possible, or am I?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
so I teach as a professor in Central Connecticut State College and the art and design department. I teach in the design department. My degrees are in English, British literature generally. And I have a PhD from the European Graduate School in communications and media. So I have certainly read enough philosophy. I am not sure that I'm gifted at this field at all. I took a course with Badu, which he convinced me that permutations and infinity went into the infinite, but I think it was a mystical state that I was in. I've lost it since then forever. The reason I was interested in the course was I have a curriculum grant to develop something about information storytelling that I'm hoping to run as a gen ed for students that are not necessarily great in statistics. And, the school is doing so much stress on climate change and trying to get the message out. There's a real need to lean into the qualitative storytelling of information rather than the quantitative telling of information. And there is a lot of quantitative information that everybody perceives. So then they cherry pick and tell their own stories. So I'm hoping to sort of gain some insight that I can use that way.
Thank you. That's also very helpful, because one of the reasons I proposed this particular seminar and a reason for reading Simondon a little bit against the grain is this idea of individuation in Duns Scotus, who was a scholastic medieval philosopher. And in a way, he was the one who brought the problem of individuation to a head. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a tension between this problem of singularity, the individual as a singularity, and individuation as an account of ontogenesis in general, which tends to be foregrounded more in Simondon literature. And the reason fundamentally for me why this matters is also related to climate change and ecocides and also genocides, which is the fact that what is individual is unique and non-transferable and therefore also irreplaceable. And I think there's a value in that sometimes gets a little bit lost. And that's going to be one of the reasons why I think looking closely at the concept of information is going to be interesting. So hopefully there's going to be a connection there. And also a nice connection I see with this psychodynamic aspect or psychosocial aspect of it, and information and storytelling, and the signification of information is something that is part of a process of collective individuation. So I hope this is going to become clearer throughout the seminar. Paloma, nice to meet you.
Hi. So I have worked a little bit with Simondon. I've been writing about like auto theory and this kind of idea of writing as a technology, and that's where I kind of like came into his like thought. But yeah, I'm very excited about like learning a bit more, because it was kind of like a subset of the project. But yeah, my background is I did undergraduate and some like a few years of a PhD in molecular biology. Then I decided I wanted to change, and I started a master's very part-time. And I'm finished. I've finished it now. So yeah.
What did you do your master's in?
I did my master's in kind of like you could choose any kind of subject, but it was like media studies or like culture theory, like things like this.
Amazing. Well, congratulations for finishing this. It's a
Thank you.
big thing to have behind you. And interesting also to have this molecular biology background in here. So I hope you're going to bring that in if we get to go into a little bit of the biological aspect of individuation. I have Josephine here.
Yes. Hello. I'm Josephine. So I'm from India, and I'm particularly interested in cybernetics and affect theory and schizoanalysis developed by Deleuze and Guattari. And so Simondon and Bergson, these two French thinkers have had particular influence on me, along with Deleuze and Guattari, and
I
I've been using
didn't hear Simondon and who?
Henri Bergson.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so these two particular thinkers have had the most impact on me as a in my own work, along with Deleuze and Guattari. So that's what I'm pulling in the stuff that I'm writing and trying to get published right now in different journals. I'm particularly focusing on the aspect of a metaphysics which is grounded on a dynamic notion of becoming an ontogenesis rather than a static notion of being an ontology. So it's how do you give precedence to a dynamic metaphysics over a notion of static objects. Of course, this has been dealt with and written about a lot as well, but it's that I'm particularly trying to bind these ideas on different in different domains and on different orders of magnitude, and to consider how can we bind all of it together into a kind of meta binding principle. For example, in neuroscience, the notion of binding the question which comes up is that how does the brain bind all of these perceptual processes into a consciousness. I'm trying to problematize a notion of meta binding as how does the universe itself bind itself together into a coherent into a coherent whole. So if we take a Spinozist immanent notion of God, which is the universe, then how does it bind itself together insofar as it can be intelligible to an intelligence?
Ah, okay, binding is becoming intelligible.
Yeah, yes. And yeah, that's where I use the ideas of Bergson and Simondon and Deleuze and Guattari to look at it as something, to look at some as something which is not static, something which is always there's a fundamental level of dissymmetry and a kind of instability which always pushes it forward. So
Yeah, I think this is going to be for you then, because this is very much what Simondon's theory of individuation is about, and the specific role that information plays in it is I think going to play very nicely into this. I also think you would really like reading Alfred North Whitehead on process
yes,
flow.
yes,
In fact,
yeah.
and in the future, hopefully we can do a nice mega seminar on Simondon and Whitehead. I think that would be awesome. Can I ask what kind of study background do you have, just so that I know roughly how to
Okay, so well, my study background, I spent a good chunk of my work initially in physics, So I was a student of physics initially, and then I transitioned from physics to psychology, psychoanalysis, and metaphysics. So it's there's a bunch of divergent stuff which I'm trying to bring together. And also I also have an interest in anthropology. So it's like everything I can get my hands on. But
Okay.
my initial
You
yeah.
finished an undergraduate or postgraduate, or what kind of
Okay, right now I'm doing an undergraduate in psychology, and but I finished when I finished my high school. The subjects that I had chosen back then, and my most of my focus for about 8 years of my life was on just physics. So
Yeah,
it was,
amazing.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I see a very strong psychosocial interest in Simondon. So that's going to be nice. It's going to help me also skew the later episodes of the seminar in that direction. Thank you.
Yeah.
And nice to meet
Thanks.
you. Antonio.
Hi, I'm Antonio. I'm from Brazil, but I live in Italy in a small village called Topolo. And actually, I'm an architect. I work in an architecture studio from Portugal, and I did my master's there in the University of Porto. And back in the master's, I studied chants in architecture, also related to dance. So I took a specific form of dance called contact improvisation as a case study for dealing with chants as an artistic practice. And I'm mostly interested in, I have read both of Simondon's theses. And to tell you the truth, I'm interested in individuation, but I'm also very interested in philosophy of technology, particularly his idea of technical concretization. And also, I guess, other authors like Yukui's notion of cosmotechnics, this link between art and technique. It's something that is very, speaks to me. And yeah, I'm very curious on how we will go into relate individuation to speculative realism as well. This, yeah, I read how, like, the introduction of the course, and I'm very much looking forward to this point.
Okay, good. Good. I'm very happy to hear it. There is a work by someone called Katie Lloyd Webber. No, not Lloyd Webber, is someone else. Katie Lloyd. I'll look it up in a second, on materials. And I don't think Simondon, it's a book about Simondon, but Simondon didn't make it into the title of the book because the editor thought it would be a broader readership if she didn't do that. That she's a tremendous thinker, and in terms of architecture, that might be, she's an professor in architecture as well, I think, in the north of England somewhere. So I think it might be a very good reference for you, because it's a very different approach to Simondon from the usual secondary literature.
Yeah, just I forgot to mention something. I'm also very interested in craft. So thinking these more archaic forms of dealing with material. So yeah, I will email you later to get the reference.
Good. I also think it's good to know the backgrounds that you guys have, because I would like to ask you, when you do your presentations, maybe to use your backgrounds, for example, as molecular biologist or as an architect, or with respect to the psychodynamic aspect of Simondon. We might discuss together which parts of Simondon text. Perhaps I send you specific texts that you can use for your presentations, because very often the problem with people like myself coming from the humanities at someone like Simondon, who was such a careful reader and engaging so deeply with other disciplines and practices, it just makes it very satisfying when people with in-depth knowledge like yourselves look at those texts, and maybe you bring your own background and knowledge into this. So I think that would be something nice to discuss in a minute when we talk about the presentation. So thank you, Antonio. I think Nihir, is that the right way to say your name?
Yes, I am Nehir. I'm from Istanbul. I'm doing a philosophy master's right now. My background was in neuroscience. And I started out by saying I was gonna study like philosophy of information, but I didn't know of Simondon yet. So so a friend introduced me to his work, and then I started burrowing into it. Currently, I'm translating a book on Simondon into Turkish. Muriel Combs, Simondon Philosophy of the Trans Individual. The main attempt is to it's gonna be the first book, is the first translation into Turkish of like Simondon's concept in a holistic way. There were some brief translations, but so this is a project that I care about. Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, amazing. Hers is a very good book, I think, to
Mhm.
get into Simondon, and
Yeah.
not only into Simondon, but also out,
Mhm.
branching out from Simondon. So it's a beautiful book to translate for sure. Sorry, I've got a message from Raphael. Just checking that this is not something urgent. No, it is. I can reply later. Where are you guys? Yeah. Are you at which university are you at? Boğaziçi or?
Boğaziçi, yes, Boğaziçi.
Okay, and your friend is not Yagmor Denizhan by any chance, no?
And there were two friends. One of them is Yağmur Denizhan. Yeah.
Okay, because we worked a lot together with Yagmor. Yeah,
She let me know of this seminar. So.
Yeah, she's a very tremendous thinker and Simondonian. I'll put our name in the chat for everybody else because I think she wrote. Oh no, no. This is autocorrect always transforms my name into vegetable and her name into Yammer, and I don't know why it does that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I sign emails, I don't have a double check at how the autocorrect does it. So I have written to innumerable people signing off as a vegetable. Yeah, so yeah, everybody look at the chat. Yagmor Denizhan has been working on biosemiotics and Simondon for a long time, and I gather she's been running reading groups on Simondon in Turkey long before any translations were available. There is, by the way, now an English translation of Imagination and Invention by Simondon, which is a relatively small book, so a bit less onerous project to undertake than the two major things. And I think that could be a nice candidate for a nice next translation, maybe.
Yeah, let me know.
Okay, nice to meet you, Nehir, and thanks for the introduction. Gabi?
Hi, I'm Gabi Cepeda. I'm from Mexico City. I do a lot of art criticism and curating. I'm also enrolled. I'm just starting the first semester of my PhD in art history / contemporary art. I'm interested in Simondon because I did my master's thesis on Sylvia Wynter. And I think a lot of the times, the Sylvia Wynter rose took me into Simondon, but I never really fully took the detour. But I'm currently, my PhD is involved in this speculative modes of production in contemporary art, and also doing this comparative historical analysis of contemporary art and fashion, starting in the late 19th century, and how both spheres have this ability of identity configuration. So I am interested, I kind of want to I feel like it's a little more obvious in a way how that happened in questions of historical taste and how society worked by them, but I am trying to bring it into a more contemporary analysis and how information takes ideas of information and identity happen in those spheres of consumption, essentially.
Amazing. Yeah, there are some texts that have, you don't read French by any chance, do you?
Me too. I don't speak it at all, but I can read it.
Can read it, okay, because I could scan and send you some text by Simondon. I mean, obviously there are some in the mode of existence of technical objects where he rants about the kind of commercial pressures that change the look of cars, for example, but in a way that is totally detrimental to the purity of the technicity of the object. But it's a funny text, and he's got some other texts that are, I think, some of his funniest texts, actually, most humorous texts. Are to do with fashion. So maybe I can send you some of those and that'd be a nice subject for your presentation as well. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Ananya?
Hey, I'm Ananya from India. I'm calling in from the Netherlands right now, and I did my master in situated design like 3 years ago, and now I work as a media artist, researcher, creative coder. My interest is in the relationship between information, intelligence, and identity formation in a network reality. I'm particularly interested in cybernetics, human-computer interaction, feminist technoscience, also in like biopolitics and self-writing technologies, like things like that. I find this seminar is going to be really informative in these areas.
It's interesting to see the different overlaps here. You said intelligence, ID, identity, network, reality, feminist technoscience. You said something else, but I didn't write it down fast enough.
Biopolitics, cybernetics, human-computer interaction, and like self-writing technology, auto-writing, like mostly Foucault's concepts, but yeah.
Okay, very nice. It's such a nice group. I'm really honored to have you all here. Thank you, Ananya. Kylie?
Hi everyone, my name is Cécile. I'm a non-binary person from Brazil. I'm 25 years old and I have a degree in psychology. For the last 2 years, I've been working as a clinical psychoanalyst, and I haven't been close to Simondon, but I'm very interested in a possible approach treatment with Lacan and Badiou. I'm interested in thinking about how identity politics affect the subjective narrative within the psychoanalytic clinic and the process of individuation and its dialectical relationship with information. I guess that's all.
Yeah, there's a strong psychoanalytic axis in here, so that's very good to know. And yeah, thank you. Very nice to meet you as well. I have to say I'm very highly distractible, and I occasionally get pronouns wrong. Even I also get names wrong, but I get them so systematically wrong that it's very hard for people to get offended by it because they know that I get everybody's names wrong. But if I get the pronouns wrong, correct me, tell me I didn't mean to, and I apologize in advance. But do you have a preferred pronoun?
Yes, I use she and her pronouns.
Okay, great. Thank you, and apologies in advance because yeah, this is unfortunately my little handicap is that I things slide a bit in my working memory. Maybe it's something I need to discuss with a therapist. Miguel.
Oops, my microphone. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Cécile, for all this. Nice to meet all of you. So I come from a design background, so I have a very light philosophy background. I'm certainly very interested in it. I obviously see these things much more from a distance, right, with a different lens, for sure. So on one end, I feel like a lot of this is very imposing, but at the same time, it's also very exciting, no? So very excited for this. In terms of Simondon, I've done some very light reading, and I think what's interesting for me, obviously, I'm limited by my own background, no, but I think there are a lot of parallelisms that I see between this notion of individuation and the idea of this more like molecular idea of autopoiesis, no, of idea of coming to being, right? And I think there are really interesting links to be made, or at least this is my opinion, no, between these ideas of materiality, right? Of materializing ideas or materializing objects, right? I work at least in the field of objects, and bringing this back, no, to a much more abstract form of thought, no. So I think I'm very interested in it. I'll do my best, hopefully, to follow, but very excited. So thank you.
Okay, amazing. I think in this case, it might be worth, in terms of the preparatory readings, because most of the stuff we will discuss, I will try to present in such a way that even if you haven't read it, you're not going to be completely out at sea. So one of the things I would recommend for you reading, is I was just thinking, it is to be found on the internet somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
But it's imagination and invention. I think in terms of this idea of autopoiesis or poiesis, materialization of ideas, there is probably no better way to think with Simondon than that one. And it's also it's a more mature work than his first two pieces, which are like for reasons that I also think are philosophically relevant, very hard to read. And I'll discuss a little bit later why I think it's important that he's so hard to read. But yeah, that would be a nice book for you to get your hands on.
Yeah.
Maybe we can chat DM about this later.
Sure.
And perhaps that would be a nice subject for your presentation.
That would be great. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, thanks. And where are you based? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm in Spain. Sorry, I didn't say.
Okay. No, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. So we have Arnab. Can you hear me, Arnab?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Cécile. I come mainly from a literature background, and did my BA honors and MA in English. That was a long way back in 2006 when I completed my MA. Then I went to the services sector for writing and like for content writing, and I was a content writer and a teacher for a pretty long time, and subsequently I decided to return to academia, and I am currently doing my second MA from GCAS, and it's in philosophy and psychoanalysis at this like a balance of courses. And my I've also done some PhD coursework from Ashoka University in India. Oh, my bachelor's and master's were from Jadavpur University in India, and I did some PhD coursework from Ashoka University, and also some MPhil like MPhil coursework from Jadavpur University, again my alma mater. And after that I joined GCAS, and my research was at Ashoka was mostly focused in spiritualism and the occult, the 19th century, and how an idea of affect and wonder through the reading of speculative and speculative horror and fantasy texts in the 19th century refashioned the 19th century masses in a way how they viewed the universal expositions. So I was trying to bring in an object-oriented ontology of the the effect and the affect that objects have on like exotic objects that people have seen for the first time in those fairs, the World's Fairs. So, and the reading of the speculative horror and fantasy texts, how the masses like received them, and how they integrated their viewing of the exhibitions with the texts to write and substantiate spiritualism as a sort of science that could be validated by scientific discourses of the time. So, well, after coming to GCAS, I moved. My thesis is now on individuation, and I'm trying to see how basically a psychoanalytic aspect of individuation, of the one and the many, can actually lead to a like, I'm looking at various figures like Schelling, Simondon, and Jung, and also Heidegger. I'm trying to see how basically the one and the many can integrate and also multiply in like towards infinity, but also are capped or rather capped by meaning making in a way, somewhat in a way that Schelling's potencies work to create meaning through religion, myth, and art. And this meaning making I'm seeing as a sort of cybernetic exchange of value through information. So, so I'm trying to focus on the meaning making part, the hermeneutics. So, like between the individual as the one and the many, and also the techne or the technology of objects and texts that he's coming into contact.
Wow, that's very rich. That's very rich. Thank you very much. And it's becoming a very dense plot with all the people working on different aspects of psychodynamic individuation. Right? You know, from it's a big stretch from Schelling to Badiou to Jung. Very nice. I mean, you didn't mention Badiou here, but some other people did, and Lacan in the throw. So that would be enough actually to start a new seminar on Simondon. Maybe we should do that in the future too. In your case, I think it would be very nice if your presentation could. I have a little bit of a background in Schelling, and he was my something of a first love in philosophy, and so I would really very much like your presentation to be dealing with perhaps the notion of the trans-individual relation in Simondon, and how you could connect this with Schelling. That would be something I would enjoy very much. I'm not preempting what your own choice would be. I'm just making a little suggestion here. Can I just ask, do you read French? I'm saying this because I'm thinking of references that might be interesting for you, but that I don't think are translated.
No, Cécile, actually, I can read elementary French, but not very like dense texts.
Okay, then because I will check. I think she's been translated maybe in Portuguese, maybe into Italian, but not into English. It's someone called Monique David Ménard. She's a psychoanalyst and a philosopher, a Kantian, and she wrote very interesting work in general, but one in particular is called The Secret Life of Objects. So that might be for those of you who can read French. It's not specifically on Simondon, but I think that it answers a certain thread that has been running through what some of you have been saying here. Okay, so that's very helpful and very good to hear. Thank you, Arnab, and nice to meet you.
Thank you, the same.
Okay, we have okay, the new center. Who's behind that? We've got two people from the new center. It'd be really nice if you could just switch in for a second, say hello, so everybody knows who's working behind the scenes. By the way, if you could possibly put your names together with the new center window, that would help me too, just to know who's kind of here with me. So that's Nick, yeah? Nice to meet you. Hi.
No, I'm not the new I see like another new center, but I just turned my camera on because I thought it's nice to introduce. But
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know what you No, it's
As
fine.
you did that just
I
as
can
I asked, just
keep
as I
going.
asked the others to switch, and then suddenly I thought there were three of you, but okay, so we'll catch them later. So Nick, please go ahead.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. I'm Nick. I'm originally from the UK, but I'm based in Amsterdam. And yeah, I predominantly describe myself. I do a few things, but I predominantly describe myself as a writer. I'm kind of interested in like both theoretical writing and kind of theory fiction. Things are a bit more experimental nature. Generally, I'm interested in kind of technology and subjectivity. Let's say like human and machine relations, and kind of histories. It is in digital design and design more generally. I hope you can hear me. It's a bit windy where I am.
Yeah, it's a bit windy. It's a little bit
Sorry,
different.
yes. Yeah, I came outside because of Wi-Fi. Just trying to speak more clearly. Yeah, so my background is in design and development, programming stuff, and I still do that a bit. My undergraduate was in design, and that was kind of where I first got into like media theory slightly, just very lightly. And four years ago now, I did an MA in critical studies, which was at an art school. So it was a bit of philosophy and a bit of kind of creative writing. It wasn't so in depth, honestly. But that was where I kind of got more interested in philosophy, and that was mostly through, I guess, like both psychoanalysis and Marxism. So kind of Frankfurt School and then later Ljubljana School kind of stuff. And I kind of got very interested in this seminar because I got really interested in Bernard Stiegler in the last few months. I've been working with the Technics and Time series. And yeah, as you probably know, he relies on Simondon quite a lot in his like problematizations of like traditional assumptions of metaphysics. So yeah, I guess this is now the time to kind of make sense of that. Yeah, I hope you heard enough of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, very nice. If you could remind me, one topic that I might suggest for your presentation could be the concept of disadaptation. There's a text at the end of the big thesis, Individuation in Light of the Notions of Form and Information. It's in the annex, and it's called, I think, Information, Potential, and Form. And if I recall right, that's a text in which he talks about learning and the relationship between the human and the machine. What kind of adaptation is the learning to use a machine? And he also has a very interesting little bit that was very important for me in the past, and in a way still is, about developmental psychology and disadaptation. So in terms of your kind of experimental approach to all this, I think this might be an angle that you could be interested in. But anyway, I'm making suggestions just so that everyone can crystallize around something that kind of speaks to your background, but I'm not, predetermining whatever you choose to do your presentations on. I'll be very happy. It's also to help everyone to think about the presentations already, because before we start, I'm going to ask you to try and commit to a date for the presentation. You don't have to think yet about what text you'll present. It doesn't matter if the text you present is specific to the session that we work on, because I think the sessions will also evolve dynamically with our conversations and follow a kind of emphasis according to what is important to you. So you can just choose a date, choose the text, and you don't need to worry that the text has to be specific to the topic of that of the session of that day. So we'll do that a little bit after the presentation. So I can see Victor, you're back on here.
Yeah, just to say that Yeah, just say that the other news entered Smyslav. Unfortunately, he asked me because he can't present today, but he is the meta moderator. He he employs the recording and everything else. So
Okay.
just present him.
We might ask Mr. Slav maybe next time when he comes in to say a couple of words. I've worked with him in the past, so he does very interesting work as well. And I think it helps everyone also to become a group that really thinks together. It helps if I think if you know each other's names, if you know each other's backgrounds a little bit, and also to situate yourself. I know that philosophy, unless you have a kind of entitlement in the sense of maybe family academic backgrounds, especially, or if you've studied philosophy as an undergraduate. I myself found philosophy insanely intimidating when I started studying it. I found writing in philosophy extremely intimidating, and I'm still sometimes needing to shake it off a little bit. So I think knowing each other, knowing your backgrounds is going to hopefully make it more friendly for everyone to feel that you can kind of chip in and experiment with things and it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's more about thinking together rather than, being judged by some, phallic logos that, that will tell us that we all fail some, unpronounceable criteria.
I would just also please ask to have about like I believe half an hour left. So no, yes,
We
yes.
have only half an hour left.
We have 2 hours and a half, right?
Yes, and we started an hour, so we have an hour and a half left, right?
Oh, so sorry. I was okay. Sorry.
No,
Yes, I was thinking 80, looking at my clock at Brazilian time. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we have an hour and a half left. I think we finished the introductions and then maybe we do a little break for everyone to go and, grab something to drink. And then I'll start with my presentation. We have Walter.
Oh, hi. Can you listen?
Not very well.
Oh, just a second. Background?
Better, yes.
Okay. My name is Walter. I'm from Brazil. I just finished a master's study in science computer in the program of computer science education. I discovered Simondon by reading Yuki Hui and Bernard Stiegler in the master's studies. My main interest in Simondon is related to my studies in curriculum theory. Especially with the concepts of encyclopedism and technical alienation. I'm currently researching computational thinking from a critical perspective. And in this area, the main approaches are based on Skinner and behaviorism, and the critical perspective are or next to Piaget from a constructivist perspective, or from Paulo Freire. And I'm thinking that this idea of encyclopedism from Simondon are a little can give some contributions for this critical perspective and this idea of culture technique and everything else.
Oh, very interesting. There is, again, unfortunately, untranslated an introduction to a book by Simondon. It was the publication of some of his later lectures. I think it's called Communication and Information or something like this. Communication and Information. Yes, got it here next to me. And it has a very useful introduction, very long, 50-page introduction by Jean-Yves Chateau, but unfortunately it's in French. Do you read French at all?
No, I am starting now. I recently found that there is a group of research next to Merleau-Ponty and this thinking, this anthropological thinking in the computer science education in French in the last 50 years. And from I forgot the name of the department, but it's related to Department of Science, Evolution of Science and Computer in French. and it's next to Simon Papert, and they are related with this concept from Merleau-Ponty, Simondon, and I trying to learn French for translate these publications.
Okay, okay, amazing. In that case, yeah, I was tempted to scan some of the pages in French and say, let's try and see if we can have a kind of ChatGPT translation or DeepL translation as a working document. But I think I did that with one of the texts I put in your.
Great. Just ask, you said Jean-Yves?
His name, I put it in the chat, is Jean-Yves Chateau. I don't think he's got anything translated. He's got a book coming out as well now, and he's a very good interpreter of Simondon.
Nice.
The reason I mentioned him is that
take note here. Thanks.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned him is that he has a very good account in this introduction of encyclopedism as something that is related intimately to the idea of information and communication in Simondon. Somebody else who's been writing a lot about this, and I think it's not necessarily a compatible reading, but it might be a starting point to something to discuss. You have to always read Simondon yourself and make up your own mind, but it can be an entryway to also know where to look for the bits of text of Simondon that are relevant. So that is someone called Jean-Hugues Barthélemy, and I think he's been writing quite a bit, and a fair amount might be translated. So I'm going to post him in here, Jean-Hugues.
You could write his name.
Jean-Hugues Barthélemy. I think some of his articles may have been translated.
Okay, I'll get it to take a look.
And yeah, as I said, look at the references, look at the quotes, go back to the text, read it for yourself. I don't think anybody reads a philosopher neutrally. And in fact, my presentation will start a little bit with Deleuze, and we're going to see how looking at the problem of individuation through Duns Scotus, I don't know, could potentially distance us a little bit from a Deleuzian reading of Simondon, or even from a Simondonian reading of Simondon. Anyway, thank you very much for this, Walter. And yeah, I think there's two people more I have here. There is Pichaya and Jenny. I don't know if you both are online.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if, I guess I can go. Hold on, let me try to.
Go for it.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm currently based in the Los Angeles area in the US. And I guess in terms of educational background, I've just been going to school forever for so many things for over 20 years. So my undergrad was in English and psychology and something called applied and computational math, which I kind of just completed by accident. And then I went to grad school in cognitive psychology and in law, and I recently completed an MFA in art and creative writing. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing, where I just find myself in school environments all the time. But I'm currently developing a socially engaged art project that involves narrative building, I guess. And I've always been interested in how, especially like many different demographic things coming together within narrative as well as other dimensions. But I have been interested in this idea of like how individuals hold the concept of race in their minds, as opposed to it being just a structural phenomenon, I guess, or something that acts in that way. Because I think a lot of people's approach to race is sort of like saying it's not about the individuals thinking about how race operates. It's really just this structural idea. But I'm interested in, I don't know, individual intersection race among many other things. So I think I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm really grateful for your introduction. One of the reasons why I care a lot about the concept of individuation also has to do with discrimination and racism. And the idea that I have in the back of my mind is that one aspect of racial discrimination is even if you took away the aspect of saying derogatory things about people because of the racial characteristics, that are attributed to them. Even before that, I think the very idea of stripping people of their individuality in the sense of Duns Scotus, of their singularity, is in a way stripping people of their reality. It's for me, you could say almost in a radical way, a way of annihilation already, when you reduce individuals to a category. So that's just to say that that's one of the motivations for me thinking about this concept of individuation.
Yeah, I think of thinking of race as something outside of a discrimination context also is interesting to me. But anyways, yeah, there's just so many things.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Pichaya, I don't know if you're online, are you?
Yes, I am. Hi everyone. Hi, Cécile. I'm going to keep the camera off at the hospital, so it's not allowed to have camera on. I'll meet you face to face next session, yeah? I am interested in Simondon. I have very surface level of knowledge on him and his works, but I'm very excited to learn. I am on my way to my PhD, and I am working on a research project called Mode of Liaisons. I've been interested in a broad picture, like Jenny, I guess that I'm kind of a generalist kind of person. So I am working on developing a tool to keep me specific. My background is in a museum and design. I did a master in the US and worked there in museum field for a while. And I did another master in design in Italy. And I've come home and worked as a curator in Bangkok for a long while. And I am a mid-career curator, actually. So I am now looking for a new tool to develop this curatorial framework to perhaps work outside the museums and create like a curated networked environments. So that's it about me so far.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for introducing yourselves so generously and giving me an idea of all the mosaic of different backgrounds that are coming together in this kind of Simondon meeting point and forming the kind of potentials of our trans-individual relation, just to say it kind of as a promise, I hope. I would suggest at this point, maybe we've been talking for just over an hour, to take a 15-minute break, because then we'll have an hour and a half. When you come back, I'll start giving, before I start with the presentation, during the break, I would like you to look at the schedule and think about when you would like to do your presentations, because the seminar is full. So there's basically even people, I think, on the waiting list, which means that in the 7 sessions that we have, we need to accommodate everyone to do presentations. Maybe, where did I start here? I lost my bearings. Yeah, maybe we can pull up the sign-up sheet. You as well, when you come back from the break, have a look at the sign-up sheet at your calendars as well, and think what date might suit you. Even if you don't know yet what text you want to do, you can also message me directly, and I still have the notes from all your presentations, so I can help you find a text that might be an interesting way in for you. It can be from the reading list that I proposed, but it can be something else as well. So we'll do that for a little bit, and when we've done that, I will start with the presentation. So we'll kind of dive into the topic, if that's okay with you. So shall we say we meet back here in 15 minutes? Is that okay? It's 10 past 3 where I am. So at 25 past, is that okay? At 25 past, whatever the hour is, wherever you are, I'm not sure. Is that good? Okay, amazing. And yeah, real pleasure to meet you all. See you all in a bit. think everybody needed a break.
Since we are waiting, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
Each person presents one text, or will it be the case that the same text will have to be presented by more than one person?
I think there are 30 people in the seminar, and we have 7 sessions. So in the past, the way it works is often that 2 or 3 people make a presentation together.
Mhm.
And the presentation is roughly 10 minutes long. But I think it's the best thing is when everybody is back, I'll explain it to everyone, because I'm pretty sure that unless some of them have done presentations and other seminars with the New Center before, they will have the same question about it. Okay. Coming back. Peggy, are you talking to us? Because you're
Yeah,
mute.
I'm sorry, I was. Okay. I have eye surgery in May and June. Can I somehow be in July or August?
Of course. Let's have a look if I can screen share the sign up sheet.
Which I think I can't see yet, so.
I'll screen share it with you.
Thank you.
I think it was shared in the chat just now. In fact, this is how I'm going to open it now as well. Okay. Wait, well,
I don't have my reading glasses on, so I'm a little limited. I'm hoping.
I'm like you. If I don't have my glasses on,
Right.
I cannot see anything at all. But don't worry, I'll read
But
out.
that should get corrected with the eye surgery, but I think that leaves me a little. They claim it really, really works quickly, but I'm unsure.
You had the surgery already?
No, I'm having it scheduled for May on the 22nd, and they keep changing the dates. And one eye in June on the, I don't know, maybe it's the 17th now. They just keep changing the dates on me. But by July, I should have amazing eyes again, supposedly. I hope.
Amazing. Yeah, this is very good. I've heard very good things about it, so I think it should be fine. I just clicked on the link, but I have to request access. So I'll quickly go into my email and see.
I really feel like I can't put it off any later. I need to do it so I can maybe see in the future.
Yeah, I hope for you. I have actually a very low prescription, but if I take off my glasses, I just can't read anything anymore. I can see fine in the distance, but let me just see presentation sheet. I hope this is the right one. No, wrong one. Oh, is it?
I
Oh,
believe I
no,
shared.
I do. I have the right one, and I'm going to screen share this with you. So, how am I going to do this?
You can assign it to me. It doesn't matter as long as I just have a little
You would
recovery
like-
time.
Do you mean to me to screen share, Cécile?
Yeah, I'm just looking where because I've been using here screen share. It's in the middle, it's green. Here we go. So can you all see my sheet now?
Ah, yes, I do.
Oh,
Well, it
right.
was for a second large enough for me to see it even.
Good. How do they work? Presenters, text 2. Okay. Oh, and some people have already signed up as well, but there's a glitch. Let me just see if oh, that's better. Okay, today is the 4th. So we have people I need somebody's help who can think in terms of maths with me. Because we have how many people? I think we have 30 people in the seminar, right? And over 7 sessions, that's how many?
I will count 1 second.
So embarrassing. And this is recorded and it's going to be online.
It's going to be 4 and 5 if we have 7 sessions. Because 4 times 7 is 28. So you've got 2 people left over.
Okay, I think in that case we have
We have exactly 30 people enrolled right now, but I know about couple have 0 that just didn't take off the sheet. So about 28 people right now.
That's
And
perfect.
yeah, so we have 2 sessions of we have 2 presentations per session, and if that's right, and for each presentation it would be good if 2 people team up.
Mhm.
And I suppose if we're more, if there's 30, then one person has to team up with a group of 3. So I just wanted to double check because now I can't see you. How do I open this? No. It's because I'm screen sharing, so I can't see you all. Is everybody back? Or are there people still on the break? I think anyway, it's 33. We need to crack on with this. So the way that this works with the presentations, have any of you done presentations before? Or have any of you done seminars with the New Center before?
Yes.
You have, okay. But you're the only one, nobody else has done. Sorry, I can't see the screen with you guys because I'm screen sharing your.
I have attended another seminar, and there I did present. It was with Anna Longo on the destruction of life. It was it just ended, I think, a few weeks ago.
Same as well.
Okay, great. So 2 of you at least know how this works. We're going to try and find topics where you can join up with one other person and you do a presentation on a text that is roughly 10 to 15 minutes long. So each of you then does 5 to 7 minutes, roughly. Except if you're 3, but then we can make the presentation a little bit longer, 15 to 20 minutes long, so that whoever's presenting has roughly, 5 to 7 minutes to present. So in terms of, I think we should get the dates first, and then we can talk about the text. Maybe we can message later about the text for the second session of this seminar. But it would be nice if we sort this out now, because then we don't need to talk about it anymore in the upcoming sessions. There is also an essay to be written at the end of this. This essay doesn't have, in fact, it doesn't have to be written. It's more like a final work, I think. Slightly confusingly, that's not the same thing as the final work. I think that when you guys finish your whatever it is that you've signed up for with the New Center, there is such a thing as a final work. But the final work for each seminar is something that is either an essay, for which I would like to have no more than 3,000 words. And the reason for this is we started with longer essays, but I noticed that because not everybody has necessarily an academic or writing background, I found that it's not necessarily conducive to people really trying to focus on a couple of concepts and have the amount of writing in a manageable way so that you can edit yourselves and bring it into shape. So the bigger text sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming. So it doesn't have to be as long as 3,000, but I would say that if it's between 2,000 and 3,000, that's a good amount to start wrapping your head around a Simondonian idea. You can't really go overboard with it too much, because in 3,000 words, it's not that many concepts or ideas that you can develop in any depth. Yeah, so I would say that if you're writing. However, a lot of people choose to, not a lot, but some people choose to submit either sound pieces or video and sound pieces, or just visual pieces. So you're also very welcome to do that. And these are sometimes incredibly beautiful. I also enjoy them very much. So that's for the essays. If you have questions about writing the essays, you can book a tutorial with me. This is something I don't know, it depends on your kind of sign-up modalities, but this is something you can discuss with the moderators. I'm here to help you. If you want to, for example, send me a draft of the essay before submitting it or discuss some of the ideas for writing it before the end of the full seminar, or even after the end of the full seminar, then just get in touch with the moderator or the student services, and they can arrange for that, and I'm happy to help. Or indeed, meet after your submission of the essay to discuss with feedback. That's something else we can do. So we've talked a little bit about the essays. I'll talk a bit more about the essays in the next session, but it's not so urgent now. In terms of presentations, I'm not super practical, so I'm going to need my moderator to help me a little bit with this. I think we need people signing up for the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. Is that right?
I believe it would be better if people could actually like volunteer. So maybe anyone is up to presenting next week, maybe. I can add here on the spreadsheet.
I think the link that you sent me earlier, it requires people to get permission to get onto it. So you might need to look at your emails in case people are trying to sign up. So to make it not too daunting, why don't we kind of work our way backwards? People who haven't put their names in this sheet yet, you can also just tell me, put your hands up now, and I can't see everyone on the screen right now while I'm screen sharing. So just kind of jump in and tell me your names, and I'll fill you in for the 1st of June. Would it be okay to have 4 people? I think we need 3 more people signing up for the 1st of June. Or in fact, any dates. If whoever hasn't signed up yet, if you could just think about it for a little moment and then let me know, or what's the best way? Writing it in the chat, and then Victor can put it in as well. But that would be a good thing to have sorted, especially for the next session, because it's also important for us to give time for everyone. If we don't have the presentations in the beginning, it means that we don't have time for teaching sessions towards the end of the seminar. So normally, just while you think about it, I'll tell you how it works. We'll meet. I'll start with my presentation. Then we have a little break. Then we have a discussion about the presentation, and then we have the first student presentation and a discussion, and then the second student presentation and a discussion. And so the 2.5 hours usually go by very quickly like this. And the presentations are actually very helpful, both for me because it's a form of feedback. I know roughly where you situate yourselves with the texts. And I think also for the people doing the presentations, also a very nice way of getting to know each other and working together. You're very welcome also to chip in with questions if you have any right now.
I just had a question. I also did the Ana Longo seminar. In hers, the presentation worked as a sort of like abstract for our final paper. This would not be like that, right? This is more like...
Oh, no, that's a very good idea. That's a super good idea. You could do that as well if you want. But the only complication with that is that I suppose you wouldn't be 2 or 3 making the presentation about the same topic unless you have a joined up writing project, which is a new idea. And I can't see why you couldn't do that, but it sounds like an ambitious project. Having said this, I think it's a good idea because it still means that if you have 5-7 minutes to present an abstract for your presentation, that for your work, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, I think it worked nicely because she would like give us some feedback on our paper, like before we actually turn it in, which we haven't, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then there's the question of deadlines. I think you have. Is that right, Victor? You have 2 weeks after the end of the seminar to hand in the essays. Is that right, Victor?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and some people, because some of you are working and this is not always possible, and we don't want to be kind of doing discipline and punish while teaching emancipation. So there's some flexibility with deadlines, but they need to be requested. So if you cannot do it within the 2 weeks after the seminar, please send us a message, and normally you'll get an extension without too much trouble. Submitting the essays, a folder has already been set up, I think, for them. This is to avoid sending the essays as emails, because if they land in the spam or something like this, it can be a little bit confusing. So if you upload your essays into the folder and make sure that the permissions are only for the moderators and myself, or unless you want feedback from everybody else in the group, if you think of it as a kind of collaborative writing and feedback thing, obviously you can give permissions to everybody else. When I put my comments in, I'm going to put permissions only for you to read them. So have you all got access to the link for the folder for signing up, for uploading the essay afterwards? No? Do you think, Victor, you could paste the link for the folder in the chat?
Yes, yes. I also put the count on the first row, so we can count how many people have already signed up for this particular week. So it became a little easier for us to arrange our schedule.
Okay, on my sheet here, I've just refreshed it. I haven't got anyone for the 11th of May. It would be really nice if maybe 4 of you could just put your names in, and then we can also have a discussion or message after the seminar for you to decide what text you would like to present. It's not a heavy thing. It's not like an examination or anything like that. It just helps you wrap your head around some of the text. It can be, you don't need to use a whole text. You can use a fraction of the text as well. You can really make it as suitable to your own needs as you need to, but I would like people to sign up if that's okay, because otherwise we're going to run out of time towards the end of the seminar.
Can I ask
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it might be very obvious, but on top it says text 1, 2, 3, and 4. Does that apply? Because I was checking the PDF and it says that each session has a text.
No, we can discuss what text you want to present on later. In theory, it's not a bad thing to present on a text that we'll be talking about in that session, but also because we're going to adapt the flow of the seminar to our conversations and to the kind of speed that is appropriate for the discussions we have. It might be that the texts are read earlier or later. So no, you don't need to worry about the text. You can just sign up for a date that works with your diary and message me, and you can also just decide on a text by yourself. Once you see who's signed up, maybe I think you have a Discord channel where you can talk to each other and you can talk with the people who sign up for the same day. And if you have a topic in common, you can present together. Otherwise, you can, I suppose, parcel it up into like 7-minute presentations each. 7-10 minutes, yeah, but not like super long. So thanks, Peggy, for putting yourself up for the 11th of May. I think it's going to be too long for us to sit here and wait until we fill this out. I'm happy to start with my presentation, provided that you guys, whoever hasn't signed up yet, you do me a real big favor and at least fill out the 11th of May for me while I do the presentation, so that next week, when we jump into the session, we have all the presentations that we need, and then we can take it from there. Is that okay? Is there any more questions that you have before we start with the kind of lecture part? Arnab, go ahead. Also, I can see you now because you're on my screen, but I can see only 6 people. So not 6, sorry. It's more, but I can't count now. I can't see everyone at the same time. Arnab, go ahead.
Cécile, I had a question that will it be possible to write more than 3,000 words if it goes over 3,000, like around 5,000 or something like that?
I would say no, simply so that we keep the group slightly coherent, and the type of exercise that it is, to keep it coherent too. If you find that you want to integrate it into a bigger document, like for example into your final work for the new center, then you can take it from there. You can start with a 3,000 word text for this seminar and expand it later for your final project, and then we can also, if you like, meet in the tutorials and discuss that if you need to. But for this essay, I think 3,000 is quite a good format.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Maybe about the writing itself, or if you want to submit something else like a visual or sound piece. No? Okay. In that case, I'm going to stop sharing the sign up, and I'll leave it to Victor to kind of chase everyone during my presentation, and maybe also Victor, if you could. It is now 10 to 4. Yeah, I would say I will talk for half an hour roughly. So we'll start getting into the topic of Simondon. Victor, if you could let me know in half an hour roughly that we stop, and then we wrap up and see where everyone is with the presentations. And if you could chase people up a little bit while I'm talking, to just those who haven't signed up yet, so that we're ready for the next session, that would be very helpful.
I'll do that.
Okay, great. So let me get my PowerPoint presentation up. Yeah. I want to share something else. I don't want to share this one. Here we go. Just a moment. I'm trying to figure out how to share the PowerPoint so that I can still see my notes. It's not working. Does someone have a Victor? Do you know how I can do this?
Sorry, so can you
You
repeat,
know how
please?
I can share the PowerPoint so that on your end it looks like the presentation, and on my end I can still see the notes?
Oh, I believe you have to like enter present screen, right? In the PowerPoint, you have to like present mode to that happen. Like present your screen and enter present mode, and then you have the notes on your side. We have the presentation. I believe, I don't know for sure. Let me check it out.
It's not that. Sorry about this.
Let me see. I find a little tutorial here on the internet.
Do you know what? I will just simply do something else. If you give me 2 minutes, I'm going to print out my notes and
Okay. Okay.
second. So I share with you. And I suppose now I can go into presenter mode. Do you guys see the window with your profiles on it, or do you see only the PowerPoint?
Only the PowerPoint, I think.
Okay. Then I can take this down a little. So the way we're going to approach this in this seminar session is this concept of information is as a catalyst of the process or for the process of individuation. So what I want to do with this seminar series is to look at Simondon's understanding of ontogenesis and read it slightly against the grain so that we end up with an understanding of the idea of singularity related to individuation. So to what extent the individual or what is individuating, the principle of individuation is something that is singular rather than just specific. And don't worry about the terms now, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it in a little moment. So it's a 2-credit seminar. You have the dates here, and as we're talking, you're signing up to the next couple of dates with your presentations. I wanted to start saying a couple of words about the image that was chosen, maybe by Raphael or Mo, I'm not entirely sure who did it, for this seminar series, which I thought was actually very nicely chosen and can get us into the topic of individuation with Simondon. So this is an image of an installation by a Canadian artist called Geoffrey Farmer. He's also nicknamed the Cutout King because all these, what you can see here are is a kind of 3-dimensional installation of cutouts of images that are kind of fixed to a little stick and set up in a 3-dimensional way. So he's come to the attention in 2012 when he assembled this monumental work, which is a huge 3-dimensional collage called Leaves of Grass, and which could appear to you like a riotous theatrical scenography of shadow puppets, including faces, animals, and objects, and which has a very dynamical aspect rather than being a kind of looking like a static installation. It has a chatter to it. So for this installation, 16,000 figures were cut out by Geoffrey Farmer meticulously out of roughly 900 Life magazine issues dating from 1935 to 1985. He had nearly 100 people working on the project with him, many of them volunteering their time, what they called a grueling work schedule leading up to the opening. And these cut-ups were then reassembled as a 120-foot long menagerie of stick puppets, each of them suspended on a stem of dried grass. So I'm referring here to a little article by someone called Margarita de Sane, who wrote a little op-ed on it in a magazine called Frame, and also Michael Harris in Nuovo magazine. So the result was this enormous piece of sculptural theater, in Farmer's own words, of images of celebrities and anonymous faces and technological objects taken from the magazine Life, conceived as an expression of the multiplicity of life itself. And Farmer stages, and I quote, "the world wanting to reveal itself." So these ideas of multiplicity of life and the world revealing itself, I think, will come up when we talk about individuation with Simondon. Each of the figures he's quoted as saying, I quote, containing a multitude of identities and attitudes in itself. And with this, he refers to Walt Whitman's epic poem, Song of Myself. And Song of Myself is a poem that forms part of a collection of poems entitled Leaves of Grass. So that the name of this installation comes after this poem cycle by Walt Whitman. And in Song of Myself, the poet famously says, "I am large, I contain multitudes." So before that, he says, "Am I contradicting myself?" I'm not quoting exactly here, but roughly the gist of it is, that's fine if I'm contradicting myself because I'm large, I contain multitudes. So the title of Farmer's Installation, in fact, refers to Walt Whitman's celebrated 1855 poem, Leaves of Grass, in which Whitman abandons rhyme and meter, and which is centered on the body and the material world, with a strong emphasis on nature and the role of the individual in the full splendor of sensual and sexually explicit pleasures. So he was also severely censored, I think, for his poems at the time. The poem is often described as striving to fulfill Ralph Waldo Emerson's call for an American poet uniquely capable of expressing the country's virtues and vices. And saying this, I want to kind of preview the idea that two of the notions that will become important to looking at individuation through Duns Scotus rather than only Simondon is to look at the difference between the ontological level of the individual and the ontological level of the common nature or essence, or what is specific, for example, to humans, or what would be the common nature of the American man, for example. So in the upcoming seminars, we'll discuss about this difference between what is singularly unique to the individual and what is specific as the common nature or essence in which the individual also partakes, and how these two can coexist together. So the title is a pun on grass, a term given by publishers to works of minor value, and leaves as another name for the pages on which they were printed. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lana Del Rey, who also quotes some verses from Whitman's in a book. She quotes some of the verses of his poem, I Sing the Body Electric. So I'm not a Lana Del Rey fan. I don't know what else she's doing. But yeah, and Bob Dylan also quoted this idea of I am large, I contain multitudes. So this is the poem, Song of Myself and Leaves of Grass. This is the 1892 version by Walt Whitman, where he reads, "The past and present willed. I have filled them, emptied them, and proceed to fill my next fold of the future. Listener up there, what have you to confide to me? Look in my face while I snuff the sidle of evening. Talk honestly, no one else hears you, and I stay only a minute longer." And then he famously says, "Do I contradict myself? Well, very well then. I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes." And I just realized that I pasted this, unfortunately, because one verse has gone missing. And it ends roughly like this. "Who has done his day's work? Who will soonest be through with his supper? Who wishes to walk with me? Will you speak before I'm gone? Will you prove already too late?" So I think this is a very beautiful poem because this idea of individuality comes through rather than, I think there's a kind of tension between the individual or singular and the generic that I would like to come back to. This is Bob Dylan, a part of the lyrics of his song, I Contain Multitudes. "I sing the songs of experience like William Blake. I have no apologies to make. Everything's flowing all at the same time. I live on the boulevard of crime. I drive fast cars and I eat fast foods. I contain multitudes." If you're interested, there's also an interesting text by Dante Alighieri, the Italian Renaissance poet, called On Monarchy, in which he develops the idea of the multitude as well as a kind of literary precedent. So one of the reasons why I think it was kind of interesting to start with Geoffrey Farmer's image and this reference to Walt Whitman's poem and the idea that we contain multitudes, is that this is to a certain extent a trope that has been relevant in the reading of Deleuze and Guattari, and in a lot of what people now refer to as a kind of more than human dimension of kind of philosophical speculation. And the reason why I think this is relevant is that perhaps our first way in, and for many people, maybe it's less true now because a lot of people come to Simondon through Stiegler, notably, but it used to be the case, I think, that Simondon was mostly known in contemporary philosophy through readers of Deleuze. Deleuze famously wrote a glowing review of Simondon's book, Individuation in light of the notions of form and information. And so one of the kind of entryways into this idea of the individual as something that kind of bursts the boundaries or limitations of the oneness of the individual is people reading it through the anti-Oedipus capitalism and schizophrenia. And I'll just read this little quote to you. There is no such thing as either man or nature now. Only a process that produces the one within the other and couples the machines together. Producing machines, desiring machines everywhere, schizophrenic machines, all of species life. The self and the non-self, outside and inside, no longer have any meaning whatsoever. So the reason I'm foregrounding this here is that I think I'll just kind of put it out there in the room like this. I think that Simondon's reading, Deleuze's reading of Simondon, sorry, this, you're gonna have to bear with me because I randomize names. So if I say Simondon, I might mean Deleuze and vice versa, just to make it so that you don't fall asleep. So I think one of the problems with Deleuze's reading of Simondon and the way that Simondon has, or the idea of individuation has entered the wider arena in philosophy is actually a rather Spinozist reading of the idea of individuation, and one that Simondon, I think, will criticize to a certain, I mean, Simondon criticized Spinoza, and I would say to a certain extent, this critique, Simondon's critique of Spinoza can help us maybe see to what extent Deleuze is reading Simondon how he wants to read him, through a Spinozist lens, rather than really grappling with the idea of individuation on Simondon's own terms, plus on terms that I think are relevant to Simondon, but not necessarily rendered explicit by him. And by this, I mean this notion of the principle of individuation, not in its very abstract sense as a criticism of Aristotle's hylomorphism or Spinoza. And don't worry about it for now. If you're not familiar with those, we'll get into these in some more detail later. But as a, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it in a little moment. So here's another quote from Deleuze and Guattari from 1,000 Plateaus in Capitalism and Schizophrenia. To become imperceptible oneself, to have dismantled one's self in order finally to be alone and meet the true double at the other end of the line. A clandestine passenger on a motionless voyage. To become like everybody else, but this precisely is a becoming only for one who knows how to be nobody, to no longer be anybody, to paint oneself gray on gray. So I think there's a really interesting idea of singularities going on here that I will argue later is not that of Simondon, and not that which is between the lines and perhaps to a certain extent implicit of the idea of individuation, in which we find in Duns Scotus, which is perhaps the most refined and completed and saturated understanding of the concept of individuation, shortly before it disappears from the history of philosophy in the early 14th century. And the reasons for this disappearing is also something that we'll get back into later in the seminar. So one of the authors, for example, who makes this connection between the Whitman line, I contain multitudes, and the schizoanalytic reading with Deleuze and Guattari is someone called Anne Beatty Reinerston, in an article called I Contain Multitudes in the Australian Journal of Environmental Education. And this is, I just picked this out as an example for a certain type of reading. So she writes, the rhizome stretches from the biological cell and the level of particles to our universal dreams and thoughts. It possibilizes the realization of more than human concepts, such as the dissolution of subjectivity, turning my identity into a collective. I contain multitudes and sing myself. Knowledge creation is thus connected with what situated knowledges, and is about community and not isolated individuals. And so that's something I want to challenge to a certain extent here. And I hope that at the end of this seminar it's going to become much more clear why there is a concept of the individual that isn't precisely totally dissolved idea of subjectivity, and at the same time that it is a concept of the individual that is not absolutized as a kind of holon or closed in on itself, but that is something that contains within itself the possibility of the trans-individual relation and hence of collective individuations. But once we understand this, I think in further depth, coming back to this idea, this Deleuzian reading, and I think in its relevance for today's discussions about the more than human, we'll find it for Simondon, and notably around the concept of internal resonance, it's precisely not about dissolving the individual or its subjectivity altogether. It's just understanding to what extent this subjectivity still has the potential also for collective individuation, or the trans-individual relation. So this is a quote from Deleuze's review of Gilbert Simondon's L'individu et sa genèse physico-biologique. So Simondon wrote in 1958, he defended two major doctoral theses. So at the time in France, this was the done thing. You had a major thesis and a minor thesis. And the first was called Individuation in Light of the Notions of Form and Potential. And the second was called On the Mode of Existence of Technical Objects. Now, part of the difficulties of the reception of Simondon, both in French philosophy and abroad, was the protracted way that these two theses were published, and the fact that they were published separately. So this has given rise to the idea, you'll meet people who think, yeah, I know Simondon, he's this philosopher of technology. And those are the readers of On the Mode of Existence of Technical Objects. People who have come across his main thesis, the individual in light of the notion, individuation in light of the notions of form and information, would think of Simondon as a metaphysician and as a philosopher of nature. And many people have then struggled to put the two pieces together. How does the metaphysics of individuation plug into the idea of the mode of existence of technical objects? So this would be a subject for a different seminar, but it's just to say that one of the reasons why this has become so disjointed is that Simondon's work was very alienating for philosophers at the time. In fact, he never got a job in a philosophy department. He had to teach in a psychology department afterwards. And his main thesis was chopped up. And the first thing to be published, I think, was L'individu et sa genèse physico-biologique. So that's the third part of the main thesis. And that leaves aside the first part, which is on physical individuation, and the second part, which is on this is the first and second, but it leaves aside the third, which is the psychosocial individuation. Maybe I'm a little bit hazy, or I've said it wrong now about the order in which it was these were published, but the idea is that I want to transmit here is that the theses were chopped up. They were published in chunks. and in such a way that across time in such a way that it was difficult for people to really both wrap their head around Simondon's philosophy, because it wasn't really habitual for philosophers who are used to very abstract discourse to have to go into the nitty-gritty of empirical detail. And certainly in terms of philosophy of technology, I think this was a very startling way of going about it with Simondon. So see what this is, I'll just read Deleuze's quote here. He says, "The importance of Simondon's thesis is now apparent. He rigorously distinguishes singularity and individuality by discerning the preliminary condition of individuation. For the metastable, defined as pre-individual being, is perfectly provisioned with singularities that correspond to the existence and distribution of potentials. Singular without being individual. Such is the state of pre-individual being. It is difference, disparity, disparation." So I know there's a lot of notions and concepts in here that, unless you're a seasoned Simondon reader, all of them will, or Deleuze reader for that matter, all of them will sound a little bit alienating, but each of those will go into some more detail as the seminar unfolds. The reason I've picked out this quote was really to say that I think we're going to read Simondon very differently. To a certain extent, it's true that Simondon speaks of singularities in the context of what he calls a pre-individual being, and we'll try and get closer to what he means by that. But if you look at what I want to do with this seminar series is also read Duns Scotus with you and ask what we mean by the principle of individuation. And I think when we do that, we'll realize that there is, what it is to be an individual is to be singular. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay. Now, where does the notion of information come into this? Here's a quote from Simondon's Individuation in light of the notions of form and information. It was translated by Taylor Atkins, very, very brave, huge work to translate. And on page 11 to 12, which is the introduction written by Simondon for this, he says, "Information is an initiation of individuation, a requirement for individuation. It is the direction according to which a system individuates." And because there's a slight difficulty in translation here, I'll translate, I'll read the French bit for those of you who read French. "L'information est une amorce d'individuation, une exigence d'individuation. Elle est le sens selon lequel un système s'individue." And the notion that I want to come back to later is this idea of sens, which is translated by Taylor Atkins as the direction. The reason why I think he's done very well to say direction rather than meaning, because you could have said that le sens de l'individuation, the meaning of individuation, is that this is going to help us look later at Simondon's critique of the cybernetic and information theoretical concepts of information, which tend to be criticized in general, also outside of Simondon context, for being purely quantitative, and therefore it is assumed often criticized for leaving aside the notion of signification. And I think this is, having bracketed this out, had Taylor Atkins translated this differently, you could have come away with an idea that information is really meaning or signification. But because for Simondon individuation, information is relative and relevant to processes of individuation that aren't necessarily already biological or psychodynamic or relating to conscious agents, I think that it's very important to look at, first of all, at this idea of the vector of individuation, or the direction and momentum of this process, and the idea of Simondon that this process of individuation contains something, a dynamic of amplification as well. So Gilbert Simondon, just for those of you who have never come across his work, was born in 1924. He died in 1989. We're going to be celebrating his the centenary of his birth this year with a something like a summer school in Palermo in June. In case you haven't heard about this, maybe this is something you want to look up. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, there's two main axes to his philosophy springing from his main and secondary thesis. On the one hand, the metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics of individuation. And on the other hand, a theory of the evolution of technical objects, which is articulated to his theory of individuation, but a lot of secondary literature tries to deal with just how you have to understand the relationship between the two theses. Now, Gilbert Simondon is an important reference to to Gilles Deleuze, Bruno Latour, Isabelle Stengers, Bernhard Stiegler, Yoko Hui, and many other thinkers. Here's an image of the first translations on the mode of existence of technical objects, which I was actually very lucky to translate together with John Rogoff. It came out in 2017, and in 2020, Taylor Atkins' monumental and heroic translation of Individuation in Light of the Notions of Form and Information came out. As you can see, there's half a century really, more really, between the original defense of the thesis and publications of Simondon's work. And it's interesting because Simondon has been read in many languages where he hasn't been officially translated yet, notably in Turkish as well. There has been an informal translation available online by the Melamphis previously, and unfortunately that didn't come to fruition in terms of the publication of the official translation, but that has been an important work document, and I think has been really instrumental also in people starting to grapple with Deleuze and thinking, who's this obscure reference Simondon, and wanting to read him, and then increasingly falling into the rabbit hole of Simondon himself and thinking, wow, individuation, what's going on here? So you could say that the idea of individuation, the way that Simondon approaches it, recasts the modern notion of the individual in two significant ways. It starts with a critique of theories that start from the individual. So Simondon instead starts from the idea of a pre-individual state of being that phase shifts. So the idea of phase shift is like in chemistry, the phase shift from liquid to crystal or from liquid to steam. And so there's this idea of a pre-individual state of being that phase shifts, and through these phase shifts, there is the arising both of the individual and its associated milieu. And I think that's very important, and one of the main differences with modern notions of the individual is that the idea of the autonomy of the individual adapting to a milieu it has a completely different premise from Simondon's understanding of individuation, where there is a co-evolution from the start, and so a fundamental relation to the individual co-evolving with its associated milieu. So this leads me to the second point, which isn't so often emphasized when talking about or reading Simondon. It's important to understand this even more fundamental reversal of the Aristotelian categories of substance and accidents. So the relation is no longer, as with the modern conception of the individual, adapting to an environment. It's no longer substance and accident. So the accident is what happens to the substance. So accident, for example, one of the categories of the accident or accidental categories for Aristotle is the relation. And Simondon reverses this and says the relation is not accidental to substance, it is essential to substance. And it is on the basis of a relation that you could call a kind of tension and metastability that you can have the emergence of the individual and its associated milieu in this kind of progressive phase shifting, which will lead not to a fully fledged individual right from the start, but to the emergence and progressive genesis of the individual, which may lead in the end to a completed individualization, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So Simondon takes aim at...
Cécile,
Yep.
we passed our 30 minutes you asked, and we have about 10 minutes on the session yet.
Okay, so I think, what's the time? Let me just escape this. Stop screen sharing. No, am I stop screen share? Yeah. Then I can see you all again. I can see the time. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. We'll get into all this in more detail. All the concepts I've mentioned now in passing, just to kind of give you an overall a kind of warm-up sense of notions that we'll become familiar with. We'll come back to in detail and slowly and really unwrap and unravel them and also critically put them in the context of the history of philosophy, notably through this crucible of Duns Scotus, which arguably is both the climax in the history of scholastic philosophy of debates around the principle of individuation, and a strange cutoff moment, because from that moment onwards, the end of the 14th century, the question of individuation is practically rendered obsolete, is no longer mentioned. And this is what makes Simondon's thesis so striking, is that he puts, rather than saying ontogenesis in light of the notions of information and form, no, I got it wrong, information, potential, and form, he says individuation. And I think it's important to come back to this moment, to this critical moment around Duns Scotus, which is both the saturation, the philosophical saturation, and the moment of highest theoretical sophistication of understanding what individuation is, and its sudden disappearance entirely from the history of philosophy. So you could work backwards also and say that to a certain extent, modern European philosophy and even the beginning of empiricism and perhaps the foundations for modern science have something to do with this sliding from view or obsolescence of deemed obsolescence of the notion of individuation. And this is what I want you to focus on when we go back to Simondon. This is not the same necessarily as in ontogenesis. We'll come back to why exactly when we get into the nitty-gritty of it. And there is something very powerful about going back to this moment of the 14th century. And it means going back to the reasons why the problem of individuation was thought to be obsolescent and why it had no place in empiricism. So we'll leave it at this for now. Before we close this session, let's go back to the sign-up sheet and see if we have managed to fill out the presentations for next week.
I believe we didn't, Cécile. I asked people here on the chat. They didn't fill yet, but they will fill it soon. I'll ask also Rafael about our waiting list what we do with the people that wrote for the seminar, so they can also fill the presentation sheet. And after class, I will go after people that are enrolled but
Yeah, we're not coming
now.
after you. Don't worry about that. But I just need to make sure. You know what we'll do in that case? I think we'll go one by one through the people who are present now and just check. If you don't want to do a presentation, that's also fine, because then we can take you off the list of the number of people wanting to do presentations, and we don't need to be worried so much about saturating the last sessions completely with presentations, which, I mean, in theory is something that we can also do, but I need to know in advance so that I can prepare the sessions accordingly, so that we don't run out of time and then people don't do presentations. So Yannick, are you here?
Yes.
Did you get a chance of signing up to the sheet yet for the presentation?
Yes, I signed up for one of the later ones.
Okay, cool. And Paloma?
Yeah, I've signed up.
Okay, amazing. And did you, Peggy, I think you did sign up. I saw you. And Antonio?
Yes, and I'm probably going to do with Miguel. We already
Amazing.
agreed. We are going to do on the book you recommended, Imagination and Invention, I think.
Okay, excellent. If you need access, you can just write to me later.
Yeah, that would be great if you had a link. We were trying to find it, but without luck so far.
I'm sending a mail now.
Okay.
Cécile, just so it's noted, and then we can talk about it later. See if you can send us a copy or a link or something.
Yeah, good.
That'd
You
be
have
great.
my email address, everyone, right?
I think so.
Through the
Yeah,
link.
it's here. Yeah, it shows up. Yeah.
And if you don't, then ask Victor and he'll give you my email address. Josephine, have you managed to sign up?
Yes, I have, and I will collaborate with Nick Riley.
With Nick.
Nick.
Okay. Yeah, I
Nick.
can see him here as well. Okay, cool. Very good. Thank you. And here?
Yes, I signed up. I also changed it to an earlier week for the 18th.
Okay, and
I
Gabi?
can do the.
Oh, you did. Yeah, good. Very good. Thank you, Nahir.
Yeah, I'm from like the second to last session on the 15th.
Amazing. And Arnab?
I have signed up like for the 25th.
Very nice. Okay, thank you. Kaili?
Yeah, I'm gonna sign it by the end of the class. I'm just gonna check it, my agenda.
Do you think you might want to do the session for next week, perhaps?
No, I can't next week.
Okay, no problem. That's fine. Thank you. Miguel?
Just I'm working with Antonio. I believe it's on the 15th of June. Yeah, we're going to be presenting on imagination and invention.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think there's Jenny. It's just a couple of you more left. Jenny, did you get a chance to sign up?
Yeah, I'm signed up for the last week.
Okay, cool. Brilliant. Thanks. And Ananya?
Yeah, I'm signed up for the 1st of June.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
There's one more person also.
Yeah, I think Pichaya and Nick, it was just said you have already signed up. So just Pichaya and Paula, I just wanted to check with you if you signed up.
Yeah, I signed up on the 8th, and I'm probably going to do maybe visual components, if that's okay. Maybe some sort of a cognitive mapping, some visual rather than text, if that's okay with you.
That's completely fine. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick is already signed up, so there's only Paula left, right?
Yes, me too. I also, oh, sorry, I have no voice.
Oh, sorry, dear.
I already signed up.
Okay,
And
then I have been harassing you all for nothing, because I think the people, I can't tell from my screen how many people are signed up. The only ones who haven't signed up aren't in the session today.
Yes, I will
So,
ask them
yeah.
to sign up.
Then Victor, in that case, if you tell them that there's only a few slots left for them, if they want to use them up, fine. And if not, I will check before our next session, so then I can calculate how much time I have for presentation and discussion as well. So yeah, sorry for being so intense about trying to sort out all the sessions for presentations, but because this is really full house, it's important that nobody gets left out. And also, I think for some of you, you want to get the courses accredited, and then we don't end up with a kind of bottleneck towards the end. But yeah, I could have probably figured out sooner that everybody who's actually here has already signed up, but I don't have everything on my screen here. It's sometimes a little bit difficult with Zoom. So yeah, I think this is the end of the first session. I hope it gave you a first rough idea of the terrain that we're entering. And you can write to me to say this is too slow, this is too fast. Let me know. I think we started very, very slowly. It will probably pick up, but you'll also see that it's sometimes difficult to quote philosophers without opening up a can of worms of concepts that need explaining, especially Deleuze is like that, but this is not a seminar about Deleuze. So it was really just to give you a first entryway into Simondon, kind of slanted reading, situated reading. Yeah, and if any questions or comments, you're very welcome to write to me. If you don't have my email address through the new center, you can ask Victor and he can send it to you. And I look forward to next week's session.
So can I ask one question after we close?
Of course.
So if I'm going to present next week, I was going to do the universal and individuation that's on the reading list. Is that all right? It seems to be on target for what you're going to be discussing.
Yes,
I mean,
very
do a
much
good job, but you know.
Yeah, very much so. It's a long. I found it. I've been working on it myself because the text I'll be presenting is something I'm getting ready for publication. So it's a long text. It's good because it's
Well, I'm just doing, I think, this introduction that you had, which is not that long. I don't think.
Oh, it's the one from Simondon's own book. That is actually very good. That is very helpful. I thought you meant the one on universals in the Cambridge Companion to
No,
Dunstan.
that's what I was going to do, but you only have like 19 pages there in the PDF. From what I saw. I'll go back and look. I read. It's okay.
Okay, otherwise,
I've read a lot of medieval literature. I'm sure I can manage this.
the good thing about this text is that it leaves nothing unsaid. It's not like it's not one of these texts where, you know, if you start reading Deleuze, you have to kind of figure it out or study everything else by Deleuze. It's self-explanatory, but in a very laborious kind of way. I think I don't know, maybe it was just me meaning it that way. I'll double check the PDF that I uploaded if it has all the page numbers.
And if not, just direct me, but you know, it's next week, so sooner rather than later.
Okay, no, I'll do that right after the session, actually. And to be honest, how many pages did you have there?
I said 19, but I'm not in it right now. I just, I
Yeah,
didn't go
I'm
any
not
further than
19 is
Wednesday.
probably about right. I'll just double check if there's anything missing that hasn't uploaded properly. I'll double check it and I'll send you a message.
Okay. Because I would like to read it soon so I can think about it.
No, I'll do it right now after the session. Let me just check. Bloomer, do you all have new sender email addresses? Is that how I can get in touch with you all? Okay, good. Good. Okie dokie. Any other questions before we close for today? No, any feedback or comments? Okay, well,
Some people have wrote on the chat.
So what did you say? Sorry?
Some people have wrote on the chat some feedbacks.
Okay, let me quickly open the chat. Cool, thank you very much. Okay, I don't think there's any open questions left hanging there, but I'm here for you. Write to me if you have any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
I will
you
email
so much, Victor, for your.
I will mail you all with the informations on the presentation, final work after class.
Excellent.
Bye
Thank
bye,
you
everyone.
so much, Victor. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Cécile. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I love leaves of grasses. When I got my first pair of glasses was after reading it in
all right
literature. Yeah, after I read it, I needed my glasses.
I hope I may have to change my prescription as well after that.
It was on the Bible paper in a Northern literature anthology. I really remember it because I really needed glasses after I finished reading it.
Because it was such a small print.
I'd see translucent paper.
Oh God, yeah.
I still have the textbook. So
amazing.
Thank you. Very interesting. I hope I do an all right job. Okay.
I'm sure you will, and I look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Have a lovely week, everyone. Bye-bye.